All right. A metaverse shot for 600K, if that's true, then crazy. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, Sergio's your guy for that stuff, bro. Not me. Let's see. DXY. Cool. I guess pretty much literally as we said on Tuesday, where pretty much over the past week, 2 weeks, right, we were going to see how we were going to react in the POI that we had mentioned within the overall POI that we had acknowledged, which I'm going to delete now. And basically we got the reaction, we just didn't get, right, obviously the full transition from a major intraday perspective, and inevitably we just could not beat invalidation points and just continued the general direction of the swing bias, which was still bullish, even if we could argue bearishness in terms of the position. So right, this is literally pretty much textbook. And what by textbook I just literally mean confirmed reaction, right, where we got a reaction, right, which inevitably failed. And even if we had a potential liquidity grab, the liquidity grab did not lead to unwillingness by not taking out our red line that we had acknowledged, right? So we know that, right, because we have now broken through the POI, we are now bullish. And I think we had acknowledged this reference point here. Unfortunately, we just didn't get that. But invalidation was never met, just from the perspective of structure, right, where we're looking at solidified points, low to high, low, high, low, high, low, high. That's our full leg there, but preliminary structure never broke, right, up until the news event. The news event was cool. I mean, especially from the perspective of EU, it makes a whole lot more sense. But you could say that we actually challenged this previous low, but I don't know if we necessarily broke it. Yeah, I don't think we did. Right, so it's relative equal lows, but it's a news event. So it's more so important to see what that move represents in terms of a narrative. And by that, we will look at EU. But pretty much as we can, the overall summary of the past 2 weeks has pretty much been what's going to happen at our POI, which was obviously the initial reaction, but how is the follow through, which inevitably turns into an order flow disruption and a continuation of our swing structure that we had acknowledged 2-3 weeks ago. Well, pretty much 2 weeks ago once we started the zooms back up. And with EU, right, this is a cool one. This is unfortunate I didn't trade this this week. Just looking at this from the perspective of news, you can obviously see what the catalyst was here, right? And it just unfortunate I wasn't on the charts at 1 p.m. I was at the gym, and I just wasn't able to look at it. But in the morning of, that was what I was waiting for with this initial move. If we zoom in at 7 a.m., we saw that initial push up. So ignore this, ignore this. That was just something I was showing somebody. But right, this initial push up, I actually would have wanted this to be what led us into the H1 POI, just because that's the time frame where I was actually looking at the chart. And unfortunately, after 11-12, I can't be on the charts. I have stuff to do. So just unfortunate. If you would have taken even a limit there, that would have been perfect. With that being what, a 10 pip? No, 5 pip. Yeah, not too shabby. And that you could see was just a continuation where you can't really justify any type of bullish scenario, especially just continuing structure, right? And that's where we now come to AU, which is, you know, the original direction we got correct. It's just that we never got the scenario that we had mentioned on Tuesday, which was to see if we could get a confirmed reaction here, right? And then pursue the retracement, right? Because now technically, if we break this POI, we're short-term bullish. from the perspective of obviously minor intraday. Hold on. Sorry about that. But I know we discussed this. If we were to get a reaction, right, at the moment of the Zoom, which would have been a bit after overlap, closer to the end of the trading day, if we were to get that reaction, then we could obviously pursue that retracement, because that would then be technically showing its hand. But unfortunately with this one, this, right, was just a simple liquidity grab. I'm pretty sure you guys were trying to find a POI for that. I personally never found one, so I just looked at it as a clear of liquidity. And either way, the clear of liquidity still does not invalidate our, overall narrative that we had mentioned pretty much the first day back. And as you can see, our target has been met. Our swing target 1 has been met, right? Or swing target 2, I'm sorry. Swing target 1 would have been here. But our swing target has been met, right? And this is pretty much, right, what we had originally explained, discussed, literally the first callback this year. And as you can see, the first trade of the year that I took was solid, right? Just simple structural disruption, and simple coming back into reference point and taking those intraday transitions based on a swing bias, right? And if you don't see a clear weekly equal lows 2, yep, precisely, that's why I was targeting these two. Precisely. So pretty textbook. I would make a video on this, but I mean, we've literally been talking about this on every Zoom. So yeah, it's been pretty interesting. Could hold that. I mean, yeah, bro, we're bearish. We're fully bearish. Just a matter of, I don't know where. I mean, realistically, you can easily say we can start coming back down for lows, unless obviously DXY narrative changes. But for the meantime, all we can assume is bullishness, especially because we saw compressions here. We saw compressions and just showing its hand, and now we're pretty much in the impulse after showing its hand. So we can only really follow these swing directions. Could hold that, who knows, we'll see. But yeah, something we were talking about on Tuesday. Yeah, something I was talking about this morning. Was here yesterday, where we're pretty much discussing the term unwillingness, right? So can somebody, obviously there's one person in the call that don't want to answer this, but with this scenario, I'll open your chart in a bit, bro. Hold on. Right, I want to know why this here is not unwillingness. I am like month-old student, brother. Please process, please. You must follow the process. You must follow the process. But yeah, can somebody please explain why this is not unwillingness? Okay. We haven't taken what? Somebody can draw on the screen, I don't care. Right, so the term of unwillingness, right, this isn't something that I included, but it's pretty much the comparison of internal versus external. And so you guys can write this down. I'm gonna type it out. Let's see, I'll put it over here. So just something for you guys as notes. Unwillingness, right? Just as with order flow disruption, there's internal, external. You can also argue that there is internal, external unwillingness. internal being, right, a preliminary, I hope I spelled that right, a preliminary, pretty much unwillingness being, right, the fact that it's, you can argue it's a pullback initiation, but you cannot confirm it as full unwillingness up until the overall lower high or higher low or whatever structural point you're looking at is taken out, which means that in an internal, right, there's obviously no full unwillingness, but internally, right, you have, right, those continuation BOSs. Internally, you have CBOS or internal LG, right? So by this, I mean, for example, here, right, if we're looking at this from a trend perspective, right, obviously we know high, low, high, solidified low because preliminary structure break, right, up until the high, we now have our leg down, right? But you cannot assume this to be unwillingness. Where is the color? Hold on. Why can't I change the color? Am I blind? Is it just me, or can you guys see this? I can't change the color on this. Oh, it's hiding behind my participants. My bad, guys. My bad. Okay, cool. So that means that this cannot be considered unwillingness until we have the external. So this would be external unwillingness. Oops, that's so ugly. I'm gonna just put E. Right, whereas here, which would have been obviously this, do orange, this being internal unwillingness, meaning, right, that our trend is still essentially intact, but we have an internal sign of unwillingness, which could either represent, right, more than likely will represent, right, a deeper pullback, but does not take out the overall structure point. So it's just an opportunity to then follow up with your overall direction, right? And like I said before, for the Zoom, in the Discord, where is this? Can somebody find that message where I pretty much spoke about, what is it called? You want to catch a bearish transition on a bullish pullback of a bearish trend in order to catch a high opportunity or a high probability trade, right? Do you guys remember when I said that? It's a bit of a tongue twister, right? Bearish transition on a bullish pullback of a bearish trend, right? Do you guys understand what I mean with that? Right, so you want to catch a bearish transition, right, of a bullish pullback on a bearish trend, right? Because realistically, right, if you catch those internal reversals based on a overall continuation, you get a not only a high probability scenario because you're backed by the security of a higher time frame, you now have the higher probability of catching, right, those high risk to rewards because you're catching a trade internally based on an external trend, right? Does that make sense? And we can make up some definitions for that, and I can then reference this call. Yep, simple as that. Right, but you don't want to get caught up, right, with this. Sorry, hold on, wrong color. You don't want to get caught up with this, right? Because continuation BOS on a bearish trend is just the initiation of a pullback. Remember that, right? Continuation over reversal, right? So these higher probability trades, right? And I mean, you can also argue many things here, like You could say character shifted here, so the mitigation point makes sense here, right? You could also say premium, right? And then you could also say, you know, your overall bearish continuation. So there's a ton of confluence, right? But you want to catch these pullbacks, right? You don't necessarily, in terms of intraday swing, right? You obviously have your trend, right? You don't necessarily, from a scalp perspective, you don't necessarily want to keep catching these scenarios here, because inevitably, sooner or later, after an overextended trend, you're going to catch the pullback and you're going to be stopped, where in reality, then the trend continues, right? So you want to catch a bearish, a bearish transition, right, on a bullish pullback of a bearish trend, right? So yeah, that pretty much all ties together. That's a little minor detail I kind of assumed, I guess, but you guys remember I'm also human. We're here now. Let's see what you're showing. Yeah, same thing here, right? This is why from the Scalp POV, right? Remember, this is what I was talking about with the Scalp POV here, where there was actually a scenario somewhere in here, right? And then I said, right, well, we can even go back to these messages. This was, I believe, was this yesterday morning? I believe it was, where pretty much we discuss that there was an internal from minor intraday, right, continuation BOS, bearish transition, right, aiming for a series of liquidity here and here, right, based on a scalp conversion, right? And this, right, remember what I said, that this is only a scalp trade because of how overextended we are, and our minor major intraday isn't solidified yet, on a trend that isn't solidified yet. So the trend is solidified at the moment we take this out, right? But you don't want to consider, I mean, you could even consider this as a new low, but you don't want to consider, right, the reversal. You want to more so consider where is the original direction, right? Because you want to catch, like I said, those minor bullish pushes on a bearish trend, right? And once we reverse, we're gonna literally go over this exact same stuff, just inverted, right? Eventually we're gonna get a bullish pullback, maybe even a bullish conversion, who knows? But for now, we can only assume bearishness, and we have to follow, you know, obviously those principles. So are we clear there? Because I know a lot of there was a couple of issues with unwillingness, right? So this would be here, like we said, internal unwillingness, and then there's external unwillingness. So can we make, I haven't thought about this, I was just doing this now, but I guess we can make some definitions, and then we can note this Zoom call. And I'll probably put it in the, oh, excuse me. I'll probably put this in the, in one of the video chats maybe, or, I mean, one of the video descriptions, who knows? So, right, so internal, right, is a CBOS, a continuation BOS, right, within a confirmed trend. And we could say external, right, is a reversal BOS, right, resulting in a change of direction. Right? Does this make sense, or should I does this make sense, or should I change the wording up a bit? And I guess you could also argue that with external BOS, with the external unwillingness, this would probably be your major intraday plus, and I guess this would be your minor intraday and below. Well, I mean, I don't want to say solidified point within the leg because there's legs in all time frames, you know? So I would more so, I think I'd rather do internal unwillingness with prioritizing that with minor intraday and below, meaning your scalp micro, and then external unwillingness with your major intraday, right? Because your security of your trend obviously increases the higher you go within structural levels. Right? Does that make sense? But yeah, that's also a good little detail. I mean, it's obviously going to be here in the recording. But am I making sense with this? Do you guys understand what I'm trying to say with this? Yeah, let's see. The EU was another good one, but I just wanted to get the definitions up. Because I saw EU do the same thing yesterday. Right, same thing here with news event. Right, you could, original direction is bearish, confirmed, obviously confirmed trend is there, right? Solidified pullback is intact, right? So we know where our original direction is. So we know that the invalidation of our move is here from a structural perspective, right? From an order flow, you could probably argue the H1, right? But the H1 POI still makes sense even if internally right, we have these continuation BOSs, right? But however, our invalidation of our major intraday has not been invalidated. However, our minor intraday is technically bullish. But that then ties back to what we said about catching a bearish transition on a bullish pullback of a bearish trend. And I'm specifically pointing out this because this is exactly what we're experiencing now. Whenever we experience the inverse, which would be a bullish a bullish transition on a bearish pullback of a bullish trend, then we can review that at the time of whenever that happens. Right, so is this what you were mentioning, Jordan? Or are you talking about today's price action? Okay, yeah, you see here, yep. So now we obviously have, right, our original direction. And we now have, right, obviously the high into the low, the pullback is solidified, preliminary structure is broken. And we now have a bullish LG, right? But we don't necessarily want to, I don't necessarily want to buy this if we're looking at this from a swing perspective. But we are clearing liquidity. We have cleared a very, very major point of liquidity. There really is no POI, in my opinion, that you can justify outside of a pullback. And I referenced that by, for example, we're on a daily, so I'd rather look for a weekly POI. But once we start zooming back in, we can see that the pullback, right, has now started because we have now solidified A to B into retracement. So this is now a confirmed beginning of the pullback. How deep we go, I do not know. But this is technically the same concept. Bearish trend, bullish pullback, bearish transition to catch a high risk to reward trade. Realistically, you know, that's trying to apply, I don't know if you want to call that a model. I'd more so call that logic. And you can apply that to a model to then justify that via whether you want to trade liquidity grab, structural disruption, order flow, whatever, you know. Well, I mean, you can justify EU pullback by just the liquidity grab from the minor intraday perspective, because obviously you could see that there is bullish order flow currently in play. Excuse me. And I mean, same thing here. Bearish liquidity grab. How deep we come down, who knows? We'll see. But how is this daily closing? Yeah, bit bearish, but our weekly is still closing heavily bullish. So we might see like a small recovery. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I see, definitely see. Confirm POI based on internal liquidity grab. So yeah, I would consider that valid. Cool, and that would really just be an order flow continuation here. Let's see. Because I don't want to get too crazy and make too many assumptions. But from an order flow perspective, it would be cool to see this into this. Obviously then into, right, an internal conversion, which would pretty much lead to internal unwillingness, like we said, based on this previous high. And if you see liquidity grab, right, and then strong momentum to the downside, then you can start assuming potential reversal. But I don't want to assume that just yet, but it's a possibility. And if this happens, we now have a major target to look for. Or the same thing that happened pretty much with DXY on H4 here, where you have the conversion, the structural disruption, order flow disruption, to then give you direction to the upside. You could see the same thing here inversely. But yeah, next week's definitely going to be interesting. The month will close tomorrow. Not tomorrow, I'm sorry, in 2-3 days, but let me see, is that on Monday? It'll close, yeah, it'll close Monday. So it's going to be interesting to see, because this is going to be a very, very strong monthly. Very, very strong monthly. Monthly inefficiency fill. Exactly. That's I mean, you could just call that deductive reasoning, where you're trying to solve the case of what the chart is trying to portray in your eyes, so that you can develop a bias. Right, finding the narrative, trading a model, continuations. But yeah, man, these major intraday moves, they will pay, you know? Not even necessarily swinging, just these major intraday moves. Like, that AU, just major intraday conversion. And you see how that essentially converted the entire thing just by reading a simple transition. Right, no, that's not there. I'm sorry, I'm tripping out over here. How a simple structural disruption model play can just change everything, just because you understand where you are in price, where the overall direction is, what a conversion is, and then obviously capitalizing on the opportunity internally. Right, so I think that's super interesting. It's very, very cool to see stuff like this. Cool. So do you guys have that do you guys have that definition down there? This one right here. Yeah, literally. Yeah, literally. Like same principle, just higher time frame. Oops. Bearish conversion on a bullish pullback of a bearish trend. Same principle. Logic, yeah. Yeah, definitely. So the reason why I think solidified points are super important is just analyzing effort, and by effort I mean willingness to go one way or the other. Right? You guys know I'm always talking about, seeing where my solidified points are, and that's just another reference of effort, right? Because like, and with that example, I mean, I could use the AU scenario. Obviously, right, from a solidified point perspective, we are solidified low, high, low, high, low, high, preliminary break. This is the high of the trend, meaning this is now the pullback that's initiated. But now you know that the pullback, high, low, high, low, high, preliminary structure break is taken, pullback, right? And it's also in the preliminary range. So now once this causes a bearish liquidity grab, you now have confirmed unwillingness, external unwillingness based on the M5. So you see, yeah, great example of what we're, yeah. It's, I hope it doesn't sound confusing because I feel like I'm sounding really confusing. But you see how with effort, right, this move to the upside obviously took effort because it took out a previous structure point, but because that failed, that changes the narrative and that gives you a proper reversal, right? But it's only a reversal based on major intraday, but on your swing direction, you're still bearish. And this is how you pretty much evade drawdown, because that's all high risk to reward is. High risk to reward isn't about catching a 1 to 100. Risk to reward is about catching internal transitions, right? And trying to minimize the time that you are in drawdown by trading within these very small compact areas. Right? And that would obviously tie to probability, possibility versus probability, which is, for example, the possibilities of you getting a 1 to 100, 1 to 100, 1 to 100, 1 to 100 is X percentage, but the probability is way less depending on what you trade, how you trade, when you trade it, etc. Oh, excuse me about that. Yep. That actually sounds way more confusing than what I stated, but yeah. You're thinking too hard about it at this point. But yeah, let's see. Something too that I bring up is, let me actually change over to Discord. Something we talked about yesterday. All right, hopefully you guys can see this. I'm pretty sure you guys can see this. See that. Cool. Perfect. Pretty much what we were talking about with pretty much what Ivan had brought up with the macro mindset. Where based on this logic, it's essentially saying that scalpers don't win, but that's, in my opinion, false. what I more so am trying to tie this into is, like you said, thinking over 12 months, 8 months, over 3 years, 5 years. And it's something that I used to not do. It's something that I just recently introduced this year with trying to set up 5-year goals, 5-year blah, blah, blah. And the only reason why I even considered it is, for example, a lot of us in here are super young, right? And we don't know what it means to try at something over a period of 5 years. And, you know, we haven't experienced that. So I actually written this tweet out. Let me read it. Hold on. Let me find it real quick. Where here right, so in 2017, I graduated high school and I had no idea what the hell I wanted to do with my life. Excuse me. I didn't even like the person who I was. I literally moved, or I went to a college, university that I knew nobody that I knew would attend, and I pretty much wanted a fresh start. But even with the fresh start, 3 years later, I still realized that I'm still the same person. So it wasn't really an external thing, it was an internal thing. And that was such a big realization that I realized via my 5 surgeries. But pretty much 2017, graduated high school, did not know what the fuck I wanted to do with my life, was a bum. I think I'd got literally my life was soccer, school, drink, repeat. And then 2018, so I tore my ACL the first time, December 2017. And so 2018, that's pretty much when I finally started, you know, getting into trading. That was when pretty much the exposure happened. And, you know, I had a lot of time. Like I didn't have any responsibilities as an athlete, but I had responsibilities as school, but I just really substituted the athlete for you know, the trading and stuff like that. Then 2019, found the edge. That's when I started to pretty much take fractal nature to the next level, blah, blah, blah. And that's how we've discovered high risk to reward. But it's obviously nothing that it is now. But then 2020 was pretty much that come up year. That was pretty much my best year in terms of growth from a personal, financial, every standpoint. Now 2021, I felt like I knew it all, blah, blah, blah. That's when ego takes over. And now this year, it's pretty much, the motto for this year is pretty much, I know nothing, right? Because you guys know I'm really into philosophy. So with philosophy, the idea of being wise is to not know that you know a lot, but the idea that you know nothing. And I'm not saying that I want to be wise, but I just, you know, thought that really opens up your mind from many different perspectives. So it's pretty much the motto. And it took 5 years to get here, to go from being an absolute nobody, bum. I mean, I could still say I'm a nobody, but I can now say that it took 5 years for me to actually get to this point. So now I know the value of actually making those 5-year goals, those 3-year goals, those 1-year goals, right? Because I've now experienced it and I now acknowledge it. So back to this now, excuse the rant, right? Going into macro mindset and actually setting goals for not only the week, the month, the year. You think 3-year, 5-year goals, personally, financially, spiritually, in every single way. And now, right, we that pretty much ties into the mindset of putting the macro mindset with trading, to pretty much understanding that it's always going to be a side job thing. Doesn't matter how much money you make. It's very, very, very stressful. I don't know for the people who have tried, but very, very, very stressful to make trading your sole income for everything, because there's so many things you have to acknowledge. You have to make sure that you make X earnings by X time. You have to consider taxes, capital gains, right? So many different things that you have to consider to then become that, which is pretty much the dream that is sold to everybody these days. And that's completely incorrect, in my opinion, just because from a psychology perspective, you fuck yourself over. And that pretty much ties to then what we had mentioned with, you know, with what Falco's saying, totally right mindset. Once you label trading as a full-time job, you end up being subordinated by it, which is a perfect, just the perfect way to put it together, right? Because Falco, right, we all know that he's an excellent trader, but he still has his job. Obviously, it's related to trading. I don't want to get too much into the personal stuff, but trading is forever that part-time thing, right? And that pretty much goes for a lot of the admins. I mean, look at Chris. He owns 2 gyms, I believe, but still, trading is a side thing. And there's so many other side things as well. And, you know, that leads on to what Ivan said about the side effect of that approach is actual success. And I guess that's one of those things where you take 1 step back to make 3 steps forward. Less is more. Pretty much that principle is pretty much being exemplified there. Right, goes back 12 months, right, every single year. And then this is super important. Oops. This is super important right here. What Ank said, right? This is very, very important. What the? All right. Right, we're pretty much, you try to force it, right? And you try to force being a full-time trader and you fail. Right? The markets aren't, I wouldn't say the markets are rigged in any way. I mean, if you can read structure, you can trade. Just no ifs, ands, or buts. If you know your structure, you can trade almost any method, right? I'm pretty sure, like, where is this? I'm gonna go back to this for a second. Oh, I don't have this on here. Well, this is a 61.8. This is close to a 61.8. Right, but if I understand direction, I understand. Oh, I don't think I'm sharing. Am I sharing the screen? I think so. But like the method doesn't matter as long as you understand your rules and you have the experience to make those intuitive decisions, right? It doesn't really matter what you're trading. Can you use trading maybe as a capital generator? Yeah, I mean, I thought that's what I was implying. Keep it as a side job thing, invest in other things, get into cool shit. NFTs, crypto, cash flows, right? Airbnb, real estate, so many avenues. You can do whatever you want. Right, but back to this. Right, you think you can make what someone made in 1 day in about 25 minutes of trading and gets the best of our ego. That's fact. That is what people are exposed to. Right, that's literally like, that's part of what IML does. You know, that's, they sell you that dream. It's cool because they expose you to a cool skill, but it's bad because they put wrong expectations out of it. Right, they expect you to do this and this by year 1. No, like, bro, it's a 2-3 year thing. This is why I don't want to convince anybody that they should trade. I think they should only come to RCV, come to us if they have seen the experience, they enjoy it, it's something that they want to do, they have a passion for it, and they want to learn more. That's the entire point of RCV. That's why we bring individuals like Ank, individuals like Ivan, individuals like Falco, Alfie. That's why these types of individuals come into RCV, right, without us needing to market it, because it's the type of mindset that pretty much lures you into this type of place. And that's why we strive. This is why the brand is still active. This is why I still do these Zooms, because word of mouth continuously supports the business and keeps it alive. Right? So that's pretty much end of my little rant, but I hope that makes sense. Right? And it's really, really, really thought out, just to summarize that. Let me see. So does that make sense, people? Let me open the chat. Are you going to pin some of the messages? What do you mean? Yeah, bro, and that's also another issue. People are so ashamed to have a regular job. I'm like, bro, what? Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having a regular job, with going to school, getting yourself a nice little $50,000 to $100,000 job. That's awesome, bro, because you can build routine out of it. It's secure income. You do X amount of work for X amount of pay, but in your free time, you get to work on stuff like this. I can't pin them, bro. Discord only allows me to pin like 50 messages. But I mean, I'm gonna put like, I'm actually gonna do this now. For reference, January 28th, Zoom covers internal and external unwillingness plus an overall rate call. Right, so it's all a pretty big, it has to be super thought out, because oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess so. I don't know what I would name it. I could literally make that the next one. I'm supposed to be making one probably tomorrow. Because I'm also gonna start getting into mental models, but I don't even know what I would be able to name something like this. I mean, it's all super thought out. You got to think about it too. Like, why do people change their trading style every single year? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think I've changed the way that we trade. I've only added details and refinements. That doesn't sound too appealing. I could name it part-time. Yeah, I could name it part-time. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say living in Europe is so much better in terms of trading. Especially here, if you live like East Coast, oh my goodness. That must be awful. Like, you literally have to wake up at 5 in the morning for New York Open. But yeah, that pretty much covers everything I was gonna do today. I mean, everything I was gonna talk about today. Yeah, and with London, you get to, and if you live like in the UK and stuff like that, you can choose to trade either London or New York. If you want to trade London here, you got to sacrifice sleep or your sleep schedule. So, which I never advocate. Overlap is 3 to 6 p.m. Wow, that is gold. HFX. I don't follow anybody in IML, bro. And if you start posting IML stuff, I unfollow them. I don't really care. Like, honestly, I don't follow any traders. I follow maybe like 2 or 3. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't like associating myself with most people in the industry. Couple legit ones though. But I mean, unless you guys have some questions, we can go ahead and end it off here. Gotta start going to have to go hit the gym real quick. Of course, always remain a student mentality is great. Yeah, man. Something about me too is I'm heavy introverted. Like these calls, like there's a reason why you never see me show my face on these calls. I'm heavy introverted. But benefits of being introvert is obviously you're a great listener. So when something interesting comes on, you just shut up and listen. But yeah, I mean, I guess we can end it off here. Cool, man. You guys have a great weekend.